Hello, everybody. There's so many people already here. I'm so excited.
Yes, happy Friday, Monique.
Same to you. For a second, I was like, wait, did I come in on mute? And it's like, no, we're good. Give me a second to share my screen, and then we will get started as soon as I can find where PowerPoint is. There it is. And come on. Google's asking me like a million questions. We're almost there. All right, we're good. Yeah, Jennifer, if you are having issues with your audio and video, it might be that you have to enable it through Chrome or whatever browser you're using. So usually in the URL in like the top corner, you'll see like a little camera icon or something like that. So you might have to just allow it in order to do so. But if not, happy for you to join on the chat. And for everyone else, welcome to the DMV WUG. DMV stands for DC, Maryland, Virginia. But as always, we welcome any and everyone from the entire globe. The more the merrier. So I'm happy that all of you can join. And today we are doing Beat the Heat, Cool Tricks, and Burning Questions, which I just realized that I misspelled burning. Burning Workfront questions, which is basically just a lively chat for anyone and everyone to kind of come off mute, go in the chat, share ideas, brainstorm. I think there was like 5 or 6 of you that pre-submitted some questions. So we do have a couple of good things to talk through. And I am not going to keep talking too much longer because I want to jump to all of the fun things. But while I'm getting through that, if you want to just say what your favorite thing about summer is in the chat or where you're from, happily welcome that. I can get to the next slide. There we go. As always, this is being recorded. If you have anything against that, you can always log off. We will post it to the link and then put it back in the event so then you can watch later. But that's that. And as you can see, I am Monique Evans for anyone that I have not met yet, coming from Baltimore, representing the M in DMV. And I am still looking for someone else to join me. So if you live in DC, Maryland, or Virginia, and you are a current Workfront customer, reach out to me or Julie Wilson, and we will gladly invite you to join the squad because I would love to have a partner in these moving forward. But like I said, there's not a lot of slides. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so that we can have the full screen in case somebody wants to come on video or anything like that. And if you don't remember what you asked for, I did remember to ask everyone to tell me what their question is. So we can go through those as well. So we have, I think, Brenna, Christina, Leanne, Jennifer, and Jonathan all had questions that they pre-submitted.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't remember what I asked since it was a few days ago. So
I gotcha. So Jonathan, you were asking around favorite text mode formulas, moving favorite reports and views from one instance to another,
right.
And then anything around business rules and validation logic. So yeah, I have some things that I can share, but I definitely know that I see some familiar faces in the chat. So I'm hoping that some other folks will come off of mute and either share what they have or at least put it in the chat. But things that I recommend right off the bat, I was just talking to someone earlier this week, is the reporting elements report. So if you have not created one of those, it's in, there's definitely a post on community. I made a post many years ago, but it's also in like a very hidden section of the experience leak, cannot think of what that was called for a second. And it's called reporting elements, and it basically gives you your views, your filters, and your grouping for each of your reports. So you would create a report. You can put whatever filters you want in there. The one I have doesn't have any, just so I can see all of them. And then I have some common things like name, entry date, who made it, what type of report it is. And then my other columns is view, filter, grouping. And it literally tells you the columns that you have for your view, the text mode that you might use for your filter or whatever that might be. And you can always export that or save that as a PDF or make it a CSV. Obviously, you're gonna have to recreate it when you move it, but that at least gives you like what it was. You can also use the Kickstart import and export feature. So you can go into setup and go to Kickstarts. And then usually when you go to a Kickstart, so tangent, anyone who's doing a Kickstart, highly recommend that you export what's already there first, just so you can see how it is set up. But reports is an option there, and you can also import them. Just remember that if one instance has custom forms and fields and they're named something else, it's obviously not going to work. When you import it, those things are going to show up as like errors. So you're going to have to kind of manually go in and make those edits. And then same things with like IDs, names, anything that's different there. So again, it's not a one-to-one perfect thing, but if you are moving from, say, sandbox to production, or vice versa, there is the new feature that allows you to move things from sandbox to production. But keep in mind that IDs also do not transfer, so it will not be a pure one-to-one. Like your report will have a different GUID at the end, which can make some issues when it comes to like API and Fusion and all of that stuff. So I always say use caution when you are importing, exporting, and pay attention to those like very unique things. Anybody else have any tips on importing, exporting reports before we touch the other two things that Jonathan asked? And just to keep everyone in the loop of the question, I'm actually going to drop it in the chat. But yeah, if not, I can kind of just keep going, because if anybody knows me, reporting is always my favorite thing to talk about. I could spend this entire hour just talking about that. But I would say favorite text mode formulas, usually it's a lot of like the simple ones. Anytime you're trying to report on proof, which I know a lot of folks are switching from proof to unified approvals. So this is less of a thing that you need, but if you do need proofing reports, more often than not, you are going to use some text mode in those, as well as making document version reports instead of proofing reports. But one of my favorite things that I created was in the view of a document version report was a wait time. So it actually just takes when was the proof entered, the proof version entered, and then when was the decision made. And then obviously if there's no decision, it's going to use noun as that date. And then that way you can see how long you've been waiting, which is very helpful. And then you can add like some color conditional formatting on there. So if your SLA is that it needs to be 3 days, and you're at 25, obviously you want to make that scream out versus the other ones that might still be at 1 or 2 days. So yeah, I would say off the top of my head, that's the first one that came to mind. But if you ask me that question again in 20 minutes, I'm going to give you a different one. Go for it, Lindsay.
Just trying to think of the ones that maybe I don't necessarily use or like apply all the time, but that I've set and that I'm like, I'm so glad that I have this. There's text mode that truncates your description field and then gives you a link to go straight to the project. And I'll dig that up if people need it. But that one is such a saver in terms of making your reports not so tall, especially.
You can
for
also
people
do
who
the
are-
same with the last note as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, Brittany, I will find it somewhere.
Yeah.
You know where it's in the reporting cookbook,
Yep.
as Monique was probably going to
Oh,
point
God.
out.
I absolutely was, but
Exactly.
thank you, Jonathan.
You're
Yeah, it's
welcome.
definitely in the reporting cookbook. I think Sky was the one who submitted that recipe. But also if you just search, so fun fact, if you're trying to do something with text mode and you're not sure what it is, you can always search what that formula is in quotation marks in community, and then just find other people that have used it. So for example, I was trying to come up with just some interesting ways to do some collections, because I know there's plenty of people out there that are doing some crazy things, and it's like, what are folks doing? So I did a nice little search for nested in like the bracket, and was just like, what are people doing over there? So you can use portions of, or like concat is another one that I'll search often just to see like what are people putting together. And for anyone who's not text mode savvy, concat basically means like it's short for concatenate, but it's put these things together. So one that I've done for groupings is I think it was might have been a project. No, it was a project group. It was grouping tasks by projects. So I had project name as my grouping, but it also had like the project owner in there, and I think maybe also the due date or like planned completion date for the project, because those are all, for me, anytime that I have columns that always have the same information for the things that are grouped, I'm always trying to get that up and just put it in the grouping instead of taking up horizontal space of making it another column. Obviously, if you need to inline edit, don't do that because you won't be able to. But if it's something that you're just looking at, like project owner, instead of having that column of like the same person's name 50 times down the line, you can just put that in the grouping. Great segue question, Deborah. So for anyone who can't see the chat, Deborah asked, how does one get the unified approval experience versus proof? So
I am in the process of transitioning.
Yeah, there's a couple steps. If you're going to, how do I say it? So there is V2. You do not need to have V2 to go to unified approval experience, but you might want to just bite that bullet and switch to V2. If anyone's not familiar with what V2 is, it's essentially the newer Workfront SKU. It should be a $0 change, so there shouldn't be any additional cost, but that's how you're going to switch your Workfront instance from, I think the old packages were called like Ultimate and Core and Enterprise, I think were the old names. And now you'll have, thank you, Randy. It takes a village. And now you'll be able to switch over. So you'll have that newer Workfront name, your Workfront workflow, Prime, Ultimate, etc. And then that will, so go ahead, Lindsay.
The short end of it is contact your account manager to sign papers.
Yes, you will have to contact your account manager to switch over to V2. They will walk you through all of this. It should not cost any money. Once you switch over to V2, you can also contact them to enable unified approvals. So if it has not been enabled yet, you can enable that. The good thing is proof does not just go away. So it's not like you have to switch that day from one thing to the other. A lot of folks, I recommend doing a unified approval for the actual decision, but using proof for your markup, which I can probably pull up in Workfront in a minute and just show that real quick. I just realized I don't have Workfront open here, but I can kind of log in and make that happen. But that's how I would go about switching from proof to unified as they add additional features, as they add in the frame viewer, things like that. You'll be more prepared and ready to go through it. And then at Skill Exchange, I know me and Ewan are talking a bit about that from a different lens, but close enough that it'll still be relevant. So make sure that you check that out as well. But that's a
So,
great question.
Deborah, in terms of, so unified experience, unified approvals, unified experience, technically two different things. But yes, both of them do kind of change the interface. I found that going to the unified experience was not too rocky in terms of what people see. It's just the unified approvals. All right, I'll switch then. I'm in the process of, yes, building some communications for folks about unified approvals for kind of all levels, just because I do think that the user experience and the interface does change enough that it's probably going to throw some of my stakeholders. I think my proof owners they're just going to need to relearn their new muscle memory about what buttons to push and where to find things. But it sounds like, for the most part, the functionality is largely the same.
It is.
But then for my proof participants, the people who are doing the approvals and the reviews, this is going to open up doors for them to be able to actually go into Workfront and find things that are active, especially for those reviewers. And that's what I'm more excited about, is giving them more information so that they can stay on top of their own work instead of relying on the project managers.
Yeah, it's also, so if you are currently doing document approvals, it's the new version of document approvals. So that's kind of where you're going to have to go anyway. And also, as you are making reports, it'll be a lot easier to do reports. However, you are going to have to use Canvas dashboards for your document reports. But there are also widgets already in Home. So if anyone is using Home, which if you aren't, highly recommend that you start, even if it's just for yourself to get familiar with it. But those widgets for approvals is a snippet of what you'll be seeing using moving forward. And those all work with the unified approval experience. What was I doing? Logging into Workfront. There we go.
Well, related, because this is kind of related. I was just reading that documentation around unified approvals much more deeply. And ultimately, I guess what's kind of happening in the background is that there's an upgrade to a different cloud storage.
Yes.
Behind Workfront. And it mentioned something about, okay, so you can have your legacy storage where all your historical proofs will live, which is great for history and retention policies. But in terms of moving forward with things, they talk about like converting to cloud storage space. And I'm wondering how much I need to think about that.
You don't need to. So basically, if you are using Workfront's document storage today, which essentially if you're dropping something and putting it in Workfront and you're not doing it as like add from SharePoint or Drive or whatever, it's going to live elsewhere. But everything that you currently have, like that storage isn't going away. So it's not like they're all,
right.
All your documents are going to disappear or anything like that. It also will be, I don't want to use the word unified because we're using that too much, but it's the same ecosystem as, or soon will be same ecosystem as AAM if you have that, as well as Creative Cloud. So if you, for example, and it's more so for the Creative Cloud. So if you look at it from like a creative's perspective and I'm in Photoshop doing my thing, I can save it to my Creative Cloud library where it is, and it can also live in Workfront and live in Frame, but it's the same exact like physical.
Yeah, it's just the documentation talks about like, okay, you might need to like convert a legacy portfolio into the newer cloud storage portfolio.
Yeah, it's like,
that's where it was like,
yeah, it's where the assets live. Like if you have assets that are on certain objects that you're still trying to get to. So for example, a template. If you have a template and you have documents attached to it when you switch to this new document storage, you will need to re-upload whatever documents you have to your template from the new place so that they will still attach.
That helps.
Again, I do not work for Adobe, so make sure that as you were switching things over, ask them those questions. But I had those questions during like a beta phase of it, which is why I know this answer. So it's one of those where I've kind of already started poking the bear and at least getting them to think in that way, because I'm sure if they didn't, they wouldn't even remember to tell us. I'm like, oh yeah, no, everything on your templates are just gone now, right? So, but always just ask. If you can test in a sandbox, do it. But again, there are certain features that I know aren't being turned on for the sandbox, which kind of sucks in this capacity. But that's what you push Adobe back on and make them do the due diligence of getting that answer for you.
It defeats the purpose of having a sandbox if you're not having those features available there.
I mean, go to the idea exchange and make your voice heard. There's 20 people on this call that will happily update it. And Randy, yes, I am wearing the shirt, but it does just say community group leader. So it is not Adobe employee by any means. So.
Yeah, that was a pretty wild webinar yesterday, hearing about the unified approval. I think a lot of people were pretty wowed. Also a little nervous when they talked about how the templates would change, but hopefully they took that feedback at heart and they'll make some changes accordingly.
Yeah, they are diligently working through a lot of those things based off of feedback. And also as more people start getting in there and asking the questions and being like, what is this? Where does this go? It's kind of forcing them to. So as I always say, be vocal. Like if there's something, if it looks weird, it probably is weird. Don't just be like, maybe it's just me. Like just, especially when anytime there's something new in Workfront, that is not the time to be like, maybe it's just me. Like, no, it's probably it. And you should raise your hand. Even if you see other people already raising their hand and complaining about it on a community, put in a ticket as well. Because the more that they get the same people, or the more that they get the same ticket from different people, the higher that it raises, the more attention it will get, the faster that those things will get answered. And with that, I will step off of my soapbox. But Jonathan, to answer your last part of your question about business rules and validation logic, you probably already saw the scale team is trying to put together a cookbook. So if anybody has any of those things, highly recommend reach out to them at CSX Scale at adobe.com and give them that. I personally haven't played around with the validation logic and things like that, just because I know that there's going to be hiccups when it comes to Fusion. And by that, not to scare people, don't freak out. Basically what I mean is Fusion does one of two things, right? It either is going to overwrite what's there and pass through. So if you have something very simple where you might have a field that's called account number and you have a validation that says it has to be 10 digits. You could, and again, I haven't tested it, so I don't know. You could set it up in Fusion that it only puts 9 digits in and it passes because Fusion is in the back end, it's going through the API. So the other things that are in place are more cosmetic and it doesn't stop it. Or you have the opposite where Fusion will try to do it, it will completely fail, and then it will stop, right? So it has 9 digits. It says, no, you can only have 10. And then the whole thing just stops because it can't move forward. Both of those were just not things that I was ready to experiment with or deal with. So it's like, we're gonna set that aside. But I know that there's been a lot of good conversations in community. I think, Jonathan, you were a part of some of them where people were kind of testing and talking about the validation.
Yeah, and they're going to have a follow-up webinar on that. Nicole had mentioned, I think, probably next month or September at the latest. So.
Yeah, I think it's in August, but yeah, they're working on it. So we should have more to come there.
Yeah, it's kind of like a feature that's kind of hidden within Workfront that they don't really promote enough. And it came out quite a while ago, several months. And
yeah, we're almost close to a year at this point.
Right. But you can do some good things with it as needed. So a cookbook will be helpful, I'm sure.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. We have Brenna, Christina, Leanne, or Jennifer. If any of you want to go next.
Hi, it's Christina.
Hi, Christina.
Turn on my video. I actually don't remember my question either. So
all good. I was just about to copy it for you. So your question was favorite resourcing report.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I love how excited all of you get when you're like, yes, I do want
that's what I wanted.
Because also I was going to say, if you have a different one in mind, you can switch it. You're not married to it.
Yeah.
So resourcing, there's a lot of elements with resourcing, which we all know, which is why we're asking the question and very excited for the answer. First thing I'm going to say is remember what you're trying to do and actually trying to calculate when you're doing resourcing. And that might seem very just like, duh. But I say that because it's very easy to start getting lost in the sauce when it comes to that. So what is it that you care about? Is it the FTE? Is it the individual person and what they are doing that day? Is it the how much space do we have to take on this other project, right? All of those things are going, you can solve all of those things with Workfront reports, but are going to be approached very differently. So for me, one of the things that I loved being able to look at was the planned hours versus actual hours per month by job role, which I know sounds very the sauce is delicious. It does, that sounds very complicated, so I'm going to break it down, by month. So we're looking at individual months, June, July, August, whatever, planned hours. So you got to have planned hours on your templates or your individual projects. If you don't, the number's going to be 0. Actual hours, that means people actually have to log their time to their work for you to have actual hours. If they don't, that number is also going to be 0. Job role, they need to have not only that job role attached to the individual, but you also need that job role on those tasks. So for example, and I'm looking at Lindsay, so I'm just going to use Lindsay. Lindsay wears a lot of hats, right? So Lindsay might have 4 job roles in Workfront, one for DAM manager, one for Workfront admin, one for project manager, one for resource manager, right? If I assign a task to Lindsay and the job role is copywriter, she does not have that job role on her, at least in my example, because she probably does copywriting too. So what's going to happen is
copy editing.
See, I knew it. Workfront's going to say, well, her primary role is Workfront admin, so we're going to log that time as that. That's probably not what you want. So you need to make sure that your templates are set up with the roles of the individuals that you want. And you also want to make sure that those roles are associated with each of those individuals. From there, then we can actually get into the actual report of your hours. So the way that I got my planned hours and my actual hours is, I pulled both of those in as columns. I think it's now called like total hours log, actual total hours log instead of planned actual hours, but you'll find it, your planned hours, you're in a group by month, entry month. And then you're also grouping by role so that you can get those individual roles. And then I had it as a bar chart so I can see both of them next to each other. And I can say graphic designer, we are planned this, we are actual is this. And then you can use that for your conversations of, hey, maybe it's just this month. Could I also add 2? I had one for like just total like month totals. And then I had for the actual month where I could drill in and see like each role very cleanly. And then you can say like, hey, graphic designers are over. We're still midway through the month, but they've already logged more time than we had planned. You might want to start digging into that. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully.
That's helpful. Yeah, we have something similar that we're gonna do duration. Our team aren't logging hours just yet. But
Yeah, duration also helps. A planned duration versus an actual duration. You can get really, really interesting results if you start looking at, like, at one point I did a document report just to see when the first document was uploaded to a project. Again, if you have documents on your template, you're going to have to exclude those so that you can see who was logging it in. You could go a step further and say logged in by certain job roles if you wanted to just get the ones that like your copywriter is doing and not your project managers or things like that. If you're not logging time, that is a way that you're like, you know, that they always, when they're done, they upload this for blah, 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 blah. You could use that as like your time marker. And then again, you're gonna have to export these and take them into like a Power BI or an Excel to like put them next to each other to see it. But don't be afraid to use 5 or 6 reports to tell your story.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to. We have a plan so far of a bunch of them. Like, okay, what else can I add in? I know this isn't not all of it.
Yeah, it's never all of it, and I'm sure there's probably 100 things that I haven't even thought of what, but knowing the process that the team is following helps in this because you kind of know what those big ticks are for stages and milestones and whatnot, and especially if you have folks that aren't hitting the button when they're supposed to, so you can't use that as a reliable metric, then you kind of have to start digging in and be like, okay, what are they doing reliably? And that's where the document upload date kind of came from for this very special use case that I was doing. Other things I've done is try to figure out just like capacity for the teams and running that between, you know, last year versus this year, last quarter versus this quarter sort of thing. And like one of the numbers that like doesn't exist in Workfront is like how many people are on that team at any given time, right? So that's something that I had to start just calculating and like making note of outside of the system. So then I could make that note and say like, oh, October looks like it's flat with June, but October actually had 6 less people on the team, right? So then it's like it actually is like a big spike, but you don't see that in the numbers because you don't have like those qualitative conversations kind of attached to it. So knowing that and then being able to divide it out and kind of give it. So it's kind of why I say know what you're trying to report on and what that story is. And if you don't know, you're not alone. Like reach out to whoever's asking the question and ask them like, what is it that you're trying to, what is it that you're trying to say? Right? Like very often I would ask people to give me a like qualifier sentence. And by that, what I mean is like our team is X faster or slower than Y, right? Like, because a lot of times they know, they just don't know what the numbers are, but they know that they want to say that like the team is busier in the summer than they are in the fall.
Yes, they are.
And we back that up. And it's like, okay, let's just start running all of these numbers to figure it out. So then I can hand you back this sentence. And it's wild to think that you might have to run 6 reports to get one sentence, but nature of the beast.
And we're in the thick of working with a consultant right now. And among other things, resource and capacity planning is a big part of the conversation, but it's helped me realize, oh, it's not me. And it hasn't, and I mean, yeah, there's some limitations in the system, but it's not just about how we use the system or how we build the system. It's that we had a lot of outside governance and process stuff to really shake out before we can get Workfront to do its work for us in terms of resource and capacity planning. So keep that in mind in terms of like, this is not easy.
No.
And sometimes it's outside of Workfront. That's the difficult part.
Yeah, I'm realizing that, oh, I need to put these certain tags on my templates, oh, in order to get this information as I keep going through different ports that I want to get. And to really dig down, like, hey, that thing that you wanted a year ago, do you still want that report?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no,
going on too.
That's why my request queue and my backlog reports are so important is, you know, I finally surface for error at some point and say like, well, that's been sitting here for like 3 months. You still want that? Still need that? Doesn't look like it.
Yeah. So these are like the senior leadership who says, blanket statements of, I want to be able to see this, which is not tangible. Like, do you still want that? Or do you want something else? Or are you really getting at?
Yeah.
Yeah. And also the question that you're trying to answer is just hard to answer in general. Like if someone just asked you on the fly, like, how do you spend your time? What do you do all day? Right. Like not even like in a work context, just there's plenty of days where I'm just like, what do you mean it's noon? Last time I looked at the clock, it was 8 a.m. Right. And you're like, how did I just spend the last 4 hours? So just give yourself a little bit of grace, because what you're trying to solve is you're literally trying to solve the answer of like, what do you do all day for, a dozen or a few hundred people.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thank you.
Brenna, Leanne, or Jennifer?
There is a question in the chat while we're waiting for others to pop up from
what was that?
Between Deborah and Lisa. So Deborah said it's such a powerful report. And Lisa's asking, what report is this? Maybe it just got disconnected from the conversation.
Yeah, it might have been. I think Deborah was replying to when I was kind of explaining the monthly like job role, but maybe not.
Hi.
Deborah.
Yes, I actually was typing it out. I'm actually typing out what I'm talking about. I'll hit enter after I'm done. But one of the things that we do, and along the lines of what you're saying, Monique, is we do, so personally, as an administrator, I show where all my time is going. So I attach time to everything. So there are 2 administrators on my team, and we bifurcate things very specifically so that we ladder that up to our leadership to tell people if we need more admins, if we're over allocated, and that's also another thing too, is our ticketing system's overflowing right now because we have more work. So you got to be able to articulate that to them without you freaking out over the fact that you have scope creep, right? So and it's really difficult we've got lots of stuff in the red, but at the same time, if we don't have enough support to do it, then we become a very triage environment. So, it's just our way of explaining to the higher ups that we need support, or maybe we don't have enough work. And that's another way to see it is, do they have enough work in their queue? Do they need more things to do? Because you also need to justify where their time is being spent. But if you do the planned hours versus actual hours, what that report can do is that can tell you if your templates are properly built. Did you put enough time per task in? Is the person doing the work around the same amount of time, or is it under allocated, over allocated? Do you need to change your templates because they're not accurate? So just make sure that your resource management is actually what you're trying to achieve. It also builds trust with you and the leadership team, that they can come to you to talk about FTE, full-time employment. And I think that that's also important too, is this is a trust builder for you and your leadership. You do this stuff.
Yeah, there's so much gold. It's just in that. Thank you, Deborah. And if anyone is trying to figure out how to tell their story and kind of show their value, Noria, who is also on this call right now, did an incredible session on, I think that was Wednesday, with the Scale team. But I highly recommend that you find that recording and watch it. She did give everyone some homework on some good takeaways that you can do today to start gathering that data as well, so that you can get to the level that Deborah is at, because we all learn from each other. Not to put you on the spot, Noria. All right, I'm looking at our group. I know Jennifer had some issues with sound and volume, but hopefully you're still in the chat if you wanted to do your question next. Yeah, which looks like Jennifer is not with us anymore. So if we have time, I can also just ask it, because we can share the recording. And is Leanne here? Leanne is here. So Leanne, do you want to go next?
I don't have any questions. I'm just listening in today.
Okay. Yeah, because you, I think it was you who posted that but someone said that their team works on projects with Canadian LOB, and besides creating a text mode and a column field to convert using the latest conversion rate, does anyone have any other solutions for this? Which I know is a mouthful, so I will.
That was not my question.
Yeah.
But it's a good one, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is a good one, so we'll still cover it. For whoever this question was, basically there's a couple things you can do when you have currencies. You can set up in your setup area of Workfront, the different currencies that you're using, what that rate is, and then as you're running your projects, you can have that project be associated with that currency. So if it is Canadian LOB, you could have your Canadian project, have that set as that. It's going to give you your values that way, and then you should be able to more easily report on that because Workfront is already set up to do the conversion instead of having a text mode column. But let's say that you don't have it set up, or people aren't as diligent of making sure that they're putting things in the right currency. You can always have a custom field that is a calculated custom field where you can do that conversion. I've done something similar. It wasn't with currency. It was just with the weight of paint and how much it costs, which is a weird thing to say if you're not in like the tools business. But it's like very much they use X amount of gallons of paint and it costs Y amount of dollars, but that value has changed and fluctuated, where even though it's only a couple of pennies because of how big it is, it can be a big quantity shift. So I have some calculated fields that we've kind of we had to make an agreement of like how often is this being looked at and changed, like because obviously these things are changing daily, which would not give you good clean data. So we decided once a year we will make the update for what that current average is and go with that. So I would go into my calculated custom field and update that, and then you can either create a separate one that grabs that data so that your old calculations don't change, or if you're okay with everything updating to the new one, maybe you already have exports of everything you need so you don't need to go back, you can just change your calculation there. It'll recalculate everything and you'll have your new values. But for everything, you want to just make sure that you have some consistency of when you're doing these changes, everyone understands like what those rates are when it switches, because again, the US dollar versus Canadian LOB, that's going to fluctuate as well. And you don't want it to be like, oh, well, when I ran the report on Friday, it was this, but now it's this. So like, what does this mean? So make sure that you have like that baseline across the company of like, this is how often we're making those changes and this is what that means.
And there's an upcoming event later in July about financial management capabilities that might be a good question to ask there.
100%. That is the place to ask it, because if they don't know, I'm sure they can figure it out. Thank you, Lindsay. Is Brenna on? Yeah, I'm not seeing Brenna, but I know she also posted to community her question, which I think I have open somewhere. But if not, I will. Here it is. So if you have any experience, which Lindsay actually did give one answer, but I'm sure Brenna's trying to crowdsource. So if you have any experience with doing creative director dashboards and just kind of what reports should show up on that and what's helpful for this team, I think it's a small creative team that they're just really trying to understand some of the things we've already talked about of like what are they working on, how much work is it, how to quantify it, things like that. Go to community and answer that question. That is all of the pre-submitted questions. So if anybody has anything now that they want to ask or show. You can also just brag on yourself if you did something really awesome and you know that nobody at your company really understands what that means, but we will celebrate you because we all get it. Now's the time for that as well.
Hey, Monique. It's Brittany.
Hi, Brittany.
Hi, everyone. I did have a question that I did reach out to you earlier this week.
Yes.
So I was working on creating like a task report with some project information within this task report. And I have been experimenting with text mode. So this was my first time. And so in our Workfront instance, I have played around with the terminology. So I've changed like task to action items and like issue to like just new items, whatever have you. And so I had ChatGPT help me with some of the text modes to put into this report.
Mm.
And it was working, but it's still not giving me on the chart side what I actually need. But if I go into that detailed view, I'm able to kind of export it out and then put it like in Excel. And I've tried everything that I can think of, and I wish that I could show you, but of course, due to privacy and security reasons, not able to. But wanting to know if you can give me any tidbits. So, what I'm essentially trying to show is what I've named programs in our Workfront instance. I named them business line, and I've named each one of them and categorized them as that, and then programs as project types. And so I'm trying to see which project types are pretty much taking the most of our time in our instance, and trying to prove that with actual hours. But the only way that I'm able to do this is through, of course, a task report where I filter it out by actual hours, because I do have our designers put it into or log their hours. But trying to add the actual project type or program onto the report, it's not allowing me to do that. So wanted to see if you guys had any, and hopefully that makes sense. But I know that was a lot, but wanted to see if you guys had any tidbits on anything that I could add. I can tell you like what I have filtered now in that report. So let me just go to edit here. The groupings, I did grouping in a text mode too. I can drop that into the chat just so you guys can see what I'm working with. And again, the naming convention is probably going to look a little bit different. So that's the grouping that I did. And then as far as filter, that's what I also did. So again, yeah, program is project type, and then of course, portfolio is going to be business line. But you can kind of see what I've been trying to work with. It's been I found a workaround, which is amazing, but it would be super helpful if I could like figure this out in Workfront and not have to go to Excel.
Yeah. I mean, I followed it. I'm going to try to repeat it just to make it cleaner for everyone else. So you have a task report where you are trying to get the actual hours by program.
Yes.
Okay. So a couple of things there, which first, congrats to you for doing some text mode things and using AI to help you along the way. Like from what I'm looking at, just with your filter and your grouping, it looks pretty clean. So you're definitely off to the right start. Task to program is multiple jumps. So for anyone that's new to like the reporting world, there's going to come times when you're trying to report on something and it kind of stops because it's just not an option. And when that happens is when you jump to you switch. I won't use jump yet. You switch to text mode, which allows you a little bit more flexibility. As you're doing things in text mode, you want to have the API Explorer open. Usually I just have it as like a separate tab and I'm always in there just looking at it, but that's going to help you just understand not only the relationship between objects in Workfront, but also what the code is that you need to use. So for example, you probably don't walk around knowing that actual hours is actual work required with the A is lowercase and the W and the R is uppercase. And you don't have to. That's what the API Explorer is for. So while you're in there, if you're going from a task, you know that tasks live on projects. So you're jumping from task to project, and then projects are in programs, which is another jump. So you're going 2 jumps away, which is not something that Workfront can't do. I think the max is 4. So we're good there, which is why you're getting results. So we're essentially saying, show me all of the tasks and the hours that are on that, but we're not doing hours, so we don't need to worry about that. We're just saying, here's the actual hours total on the task. Here's the programs that it's in, and we're grouping it by that. My question to you, Brittany, before we go deeper into like how to make this chart work, is can we just do projects? Like, is there a reason why you need to see the individual task and the hours that are on there, or can we just see the total number of hours that are on the projects within the program?
I actually don't think I thought about that because I didn't know that I could actually. So what I'm trying to do is show, because how we have it set up, the designers go in and we do have planned hours, and so it's giving us the complete life cycle of, you know, the project and not like what's actually being done. And so we were trying to break it down by the task, but if there is a way where I can show like actual hours on the project side, which I'm pretty sure maybe I've tried to do. Again, I just need to see that project type here, and I believe I have something similar to that. Maybe I'm just overcomplicating it. I have no idea. I have so many reports. But yeah, I'm so curious to see how whatever help that anyone can give.
Yeah.
One thing that I found in reporting while you're doing that, Monique, is I find it's easier to drill down than it is to drill up in reports. Okay, so Monique's saying to go up, so she's going up 2 levels, no, 1 level up from task up to project is going to give you a larger lens than trying to drill up to the program level. So you can, if you do it at the project level, then you'll be able to group it by program or by team, but you can do it by team, you can do it by job role, you can do it by person. So you can have a larger breadth of information the higher up you go in the levels.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I know I'm doing this really quick, only because we only have like 6 minutes left. So I want to make sure that we're just seeing something here. So yeah, just know this is a test environment. So I also have to make sure that there was at least something with some data in it. So essentially there's this test project, and hopefully the time is actually logged to the task and not the project itself, but either way, it's not going to matter too much. Yeah, so we can see we have this project, develop and test, blah, 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 blah. There's 5 hours that are logged to individual tasks. We know that they're on task because this says task time. But when I look at my report, I can see that this whole project has 5 hours. So Brittany, that's why I was kind of asking, like, do we need to know the individual task? And if we don't, and we just need to know this project has 5 hours, that's going to make your life so much easier, because you also don't need any text mode, which again, great for you to at least learn some text mode. You're going to use that in the future. But for this one, essentially what I did was I made a project report. We know it's a project report because right down here it says showing one of 374 projects. So if anybody ever gets confused on what kind of report you're looking at, always look down here. If I go into edit, I just used the standard column view because it was already there. And then I added one column that's called actual hours. I just typed in actual hours so we don't have to do anything else. But if I zoom out a little bit, you can see that we can also see like actual hours this month or 2 months ago, or there's a bunch of other options in there. But for this, we just want actual hours. And then I am grouping it by our program. And again, I didn't put any filters, but we can easily show filters of maybe ignore certain programs or include only certain types of projects or whatever that might be. And then in the chart, I did a column and just said that we're going to show actual hours on the Y, and the bottom is going to be our project name.
Wow. I was definitely overcomplicating it. So
We've all been there.
Which is also why, like, when you finished explaining it, I was just like, wait, so we just want to see the hours in a given program? Easy peasy. So we can see here that this software stack program is the one that has the most hours that are kind of showing to it. And then also we have a bunch of projects that aren't in any programs, which is why we have this no value. Yeah, that is that's how I would solve that one. But again, you learned a lot of good tips and tricks in there that nobody can take away from you.
Thanks, but this was so helpful, and it's definitely going to help me next week when I have to present. So thank you guys so much for those tidbits.
Of course, which I know we are only 3 minutes left. So I'm going to switch over to showing slides again and kind of just close us out. But if it also helps if I actually have PowerPoint open. Here we go. If at any point you had a question that we just didn't get to, PowerPoint is being very slow right now. Give me a minute. There we go. You can always continue that conversation on community. There is an event already for this one. So I'm just going to drop that in the chat. Always post on there. We will answer it. We will also do more of these. The Ohio WUG actually has one coming up in a few weeks. So if you join theirs, you can always reach out to them as well. But if you're not a part of the Workfront DMV chapter yet, be sure to join us so that you get notifications when we have more of these, and you can just hang out with me as much as you want. If you are in the area and want to be a co-lead, again, I would love to have a partner. So reach out. But if you are in Boston, Chicago, Minnesota, Utah, or other areas, I'm looking at a couple folks that I know are in Atlanta, some folks that I know that are in Dallas. Start a WUG, join the existing ones, keep them going. Here are all of the upcoming WUG events. So like I said, Ohio has one in a couple weeks. New York has one on Tuesday. So plenty of events that are happening. Yes, Central is on the 23rd. There's also a summer series, which Jonathan alluded to, for the content supply chain. They had one yesterday that was all on unified approvals. They have another one that's coming up on planning. And then in August, there's one for AI, and that's with the Adobe product team. So definitely go to those. Skill Exchange is coming up soon as well on August 5th. Yours truly will be speaking there, as well as a bunch of other incredible people. So plan out your day, go to Skill Exchange. There's also just some other great events, including the financial one that Lindsay mentioned. There's a fusion session that's coming up soon. Again, you will have access to all of these slides. If you're in New York, there's an Adobe Insiders Tour that's happening, or if you can make your way to New York in August, highly recommend that as well. And if you want to be involved with just doing more things, you can always write a perspective. So that's all I have for you today, and we are ending right on time. So hope you enjoyed this, and as always, I will see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.